So reading today from Bhagavad Gita, the 18th chapter, Enlightenment through Self-Surrender. Arjuna then said, "O my Lord, you vanquish the doubts of your poor devotees, and in your mighty hands the whole world is resting. You are the unlimited reservoir of transcendental feelings from which all sentient beings derive their capacities to exist, to interact with the environment, and to exchange love. I beg, therefore, that you will enlighten me about the nature of genuine detachment from matter, and about the characteristics of the real renunciate." The Blessed Lord replied, "Learned philosophers who have actually realized the truths of life define genuine detachment as the complete freedom from the tendency to act on the basis of self-centered exploitative motivations. The sages know that enthusiastic service in the spirit of dedication to the complete whole is the symptom of those who are actually renunciates. Although there is a certain school of thought that declares all action to be ultimately harmful and perfection to be attainable only through absolute retirement from work, the truly learned argue that engagement in the performance of divine liturgies, the offering of service for the benefit of others, and the regular execution of spiritual practices should in fact at no time be given up. O crest jewel of your family, most valiant of the human race, please listen carefully as I explain authoritatively the three different levels of detachment from material affairs. Even the wisest and most exalted of persons may gain further self-enrichment by devotedly participating in those rites of divine worship in which the Supreme Divine Person is invoked and glorified. Furthermore, every soul is obligated by the higher law of love to actively try to help those in need and should be ready to work in a true spirit of self-sacrifice. It is my conclusion that action without any trace of selfish motivation, fully animated by loving devotion, is the most praiseworthy course to adopt. Each person has a purpose in life to fulfill, and service is required from everyone. Illusion may influence a soul to abandon that service, but such neglect is due to the impulses born of darkness and is a symptom of ignorance. If, under the heavy influence of the impassioning mode of nature, one abandons the ideal of service, thinking an active life to be the source of affliction and grief, such so-called renunciation will never bring the sweet taste brought about by true detachment. In my considered opinion, when genuine detachment arises in the heart, by the influence of the purifying and harmonizing mode of nature, a person will carry out with joy whatever action may be required, and will never act from selfish motive, being moved instead by a consciousness of the underlying unity of all existence. Enlightened intelligence and freedom from all doubts are bestowed on the truly pure at heart, who give up all self-centered conceptions of action, showing readiness to do even that which seems unpleasant if it be their duty, and willingness to give up even that which seems pleasing if it be contrary to it. Inasmuch as it is never possible to totally avoid action, as long as one remains within this world, genuine detachment is not characterized by inaction, but by the willingness to offer selfless service. Fruitive workers face three prospects at the time of death. Those whose actions are predominantly pious may look forward to higher birth. Those whose actions are greatly impious may slip down to a birth in some hellish condition, and those whose lives are mediocre will find continued opportunity for more of the same. However, those detached souls whose pure hearts enliven them to selfless action remain free from all necessity for rebirth. My wise and powerful friend, the Holy Scriptures explain that whatever action takes place may be analyzed in terms of 5 different factors which necessarily contribute to its being undertaken and completed. The first factor is the physical field in which the action is being carried out, the particular type of body and the nature of the environment in which the body is to act. Secondly, the individual nature of the person carrying out the action needs to be considered. In the third place, the specific technology to be employed and the various implements to be utilized are a determining factor. The fourth point to analyze is the exact nature of that which is to be accomplished. Finally, however, the most fundamental of all of the factors involved in any action is the will of the Supreme Person, which is the ultimate determinant of everything. Whatever action a person may carry out physically, verbally, or mentally, successfully or unsuccessfully, may be analyzed in terms of these 5 contributing factors. Only those with unevolved intelligence are so foolish as to think themselves to be the exclusive factor determining the execution and outcome of their actions. Those who act without this false sense of overlordship, never allowing their pure power of intellection to be influenced by mundane duality, are never entangled in the chain of action and reaction. Whatever they must do, impelled by higher duty, no blame will ever be incurred by them. The inspiration to act arises when the soul is awake and aware, conscious of some particular purpose that needs to be achieved, and acquainted with the means by which that goal may be reached. When the inspiration to act is there, then the individual involved, the particular set of senses and mind being employed, as well as the specific work that is to be accomplished, constitute the factors involved in carrying out the action. The modulation of mundane nature produces three principal modes of understanding, three different categories of activities, and three different attitudes in the hearts of those that are working. Please continue to hear attentively as I explain them. In those whose hearts have been purified by the harmonizing effect of goodness, an understanding of the underlying unity of all life arises, a vision of oneness in diversity. Those whose understanding is affected by the influence of the impassioning force imagine every person to be isolated and unconnected with all others. They come to the conclusion that the differentiation of external forms implies some basic inequality between beings. Those who are in ignorance, under the influence of darkness, see everything only in relationship to themselves. They are never able to ascertain what is the real shape of things and cannot properly associate causes with their effects. The understanding of such persons is formulated without any reference to higher truths and is therefore most deficient. The harmonizing and purifying force of goodness inspires those who are genuinely detached to a pattern of activity which is in accordance with scriptural codes, without selfish motivations, and free from favoritism and prejudice. To those whose hearts are affected by passion, all activity seems very laborious. Suffering on account of misidentifying themselves with their bodies and minds, they act only for selfish gratification. When activity is undertaken without any thought of future consequences, without regard for the feelings of others, and without proper deliberation as to practicality, it is a symptom of the influence of darkness. Those whose efforts are illuminated by the purifying and harmonizing effect of goodness show themselves to be liberated from all mundane attractions, freed from the tendency to exploit others, enthusiastic in the execution of that which is good and true, and unconcerned with favorable and unfavorable circumstances. The efforts of those impassioned by the energizing force of nature are characterized by an intense attachment to enjoy the fruits of their own labors, an insatiable desire for food and wealth, a tendency towards violence and harshness, a host of impure habits, and an unstable emotional life. Those workers who are under the influence of darkness never take account of the ordinances contained in Holy Scriptures. They are stubborn and intractable in their dealings, and are always willing to mislead others. They often speak unkindly of their neighbors, are averse to hard work, unsociable, ill-humored, and have a tendency to put things off indefinitely. My dear Arjuna, now please hear from me as I describe the various effects of modulating nature on intelligence and on the will to act. When the intellect is able to discern properly between appropriate and inappropriate modes of action, when it understands the causes of fear and is thereby able to attain fearlessness, when it knows the roots of bondage and the path to liberation, only then can it be said to be illumined by the purifying and harmonizing effect of goodness. When the intellect remains flawed by the influence of the impassioning force of nature, action which is in accordance with divine law cannot be distinguished from criminal behavior, and that which is good and beneficial cannot be distinguished from that which is not. Those whose intellect is under the spell of darkness actually consider goodness to be evil and evil to be goodness. Ignorance clouds their vision, and therefore they stumble blindly in the wrong direction. My dear child of Pritha, those who have been influenced by the purifying and harmonizing effect of goodness possess a will to act that is consistent and sustainable. Being resolute in their determination, they are able to supervise properly all of the affairs of life and all of the activities of mind and senses. Absorbing themselves continuously in divine communion with me, by serving me with loving devotion, they develop an inner resolve which can never be worn down by any external factor. The will to act of those whose hearts have been influenced by the impassioning mode of nature becomes firm, but only in pursuit of the attainment of the limited goals of mundane religiosity, economic development, and sensual gratification. The will to act of those who are under the spell of darkness remains weakened by excessive sleep, paranoia, grief, loss of heart, and general bewilderment. The happiness experienced by souls in this world falls into three different classes, but only those who seek joy through spiritual practice are enabled to come to the end of all suffering. Although at the onset of one's spiritual life one may feel as if poisoned by the determined effort to transcend the mundane that is required of the aspirant, in the course of time that poison becomes transformed into nectar. The purifying and harmonizing effect of goodness brings one real joy and enables one at last to taste the mercy of complete self-realization. On the other hand, the feelings of happiness that arise when the senses come into connection with their objects bear a taste of nectar in the beginning, but later on the taste becomes like poison. Such is the inferior quality of that happiness which is enjoyed while under the jurisdiction of passion. Those unfortunate souls who are under the spell of darkness try to derive happiness in ways that are in fact quite horrible even from the start. They take shelter in unconsciousness, idle loafing, and madness. Nowhere within the domain of matter, whether on this earth or in the planets of outer space, where the devas reside, does anything exist which is free from the modulating influences of the three primary qualities of mundane natural forces. Priests and intellectuals, warriors and administrators, merchants and farmers, artisans and laborers, all are distinguished from one another on account of the varied influences of the binding forces of material nature. Priests and teachers should be peaceful and self-controlled. They must observe the moral strictures regulating body, mind, and words. Their habits and hearts should be pure, and they should be able to endure long and much. Being non-covetous, they should be upright, sincere, and truthful. As a matter of course, they must be wise, learned, and thoroughly pious. Warriors and administrators should be noble and heroic. They must have the authority and the potency to carry out their responsibilities, should face their work with firm resolve, and employ all of their creative intelligence. In a battle or in a crisis, they must be valiant and level-headed, and must never flee from the field in fear. They should be very generous in their dealings with the citizens, and they should display natural leadership qualities. Farmers and merchants must tend diligently and honestly to the production of food and other necessary items, the protection of the animals, especially cows, all matters of trade and commerce, and the system of banking. Artisans and laborers should carry out their work skillfully, honestly, and with a spirit of service to others. All persons can achieve perfection by doing that work which comes naturally to them as well as they can. Listen as I explain further. The Supreme Absolute Truth is the source of all emanations, and those fortunate human beings who offer their lives in service to that truth can achieve perfection simply by doing that which comes naturally. It is preferable to carry out that service which is ordained for one by nature, even if one is unable to do it perfectly, than to attempt to perform the function of another, though it may seem more attractive. If one sincerely attempts to carry out God-given responsibilities, no blame will ever result. No work is without its difficulties, my dear Kunteya. Nonetheless, one should never abandon a noble venture simply because some trouble arises, just as one does not put out a fire simply because it also produces some smoke. When the power of intellection becomes non-aligned with the forces of mundane attraction and repulsion, when one gains mastery over the self and no longer maintains any mundane ambition, when one becomes perfect in transcendental activity, dedicating every thought, word, and action to the loving service of the Supreme Person, at that time one may be considered a true renunciate. I shall now present a summary study of the means by which the realization of one's relationship with the Supreme Divine Person may be actualized. This is the mature stage of transcendental knowledge and should be understood as such. One's intelligence must become fully cleansed by an infusion of divine grace, and one must seek with firm resolution to adapt all activity to the higher needs of the soul. One should make attempt to hear only transcendental sound vibrations, and should dedicate all of the actions of the senses to the service of the Supreme Truth, putting aside all provincial calculations and adopting a universal standpoint. One should live as a hermit or in the company of pure devotees, moderating one's consumption of food, and eating only food that is sanctified first by offering to the Supreme Person. One should also be careful to control the organ of speech by always singing the glories of the Supreme, and by speaking only those things which are pertinent to circumstances and have some substance. The activities of mind and senses should be overseen carefully and maturely. One should constantly remain absorbed in contemplation of the transcendence and become fixed in divine communion with me. Ever free from attachment to the mundane and temporary, one should seek the shelter of the spiritual and eternal. Freeing oneself from the tendency to exploit others, one should cultivate spiritual strength and become cleansed of false prestige, selfish desires, and feelings of anger and displeasure. One should accept whatever is favorable to the execution of divine service and give up whatever is unfavorable. Never thinking oneself to be the true owner of anything, one should become perfectly peaceful, in harmony with all creation, and in this way one will at last become firmly established on the plane of fully realized spiritual understanding. Having realized one's identity in relationship to the Supreme Truth, one naturally becomes fully self-satisfied and blissful. Never grieving over anything, never hankering for anything, one begins to see all living beings with love, and in this way one gradually achieves the platform of unalloyed pure devotional love for me. The absolute reality can be perceived directly by a heart that has been transformed and melted by the ecstasy of unalloyed devotional love. After such transformation occurs, the Supreme Truth, the Supreme Divine Person, may be seen face to face, and one may enter into the divine and everlasting spiritual realm. I shall forever personally guarantee protection and full security to my pure devotees, showering them lavishly with my mercy and blessings. Eternally they will have a place in my infinite and indescribably blissful home. Carry out all of your activities while fully absorbing your consciousness in remembrance of me. Dedicate all of your actions to my service, and feel yourself fully sheltered by my mercy. Absorbing your intelligence in deep communion with me, you should execute pure devotional activities throughout the 24 hours of the day. If you simply absorb your consciousness in remembering me, then I shall personally see that the purifying rays of my mercy will cleanse your heart of any impediment which might come to hinder you along your way. On the other hand, if you are unable to see beyond the veil covering your real identity, you will be unable to understand the divine nature of these words of mine and be lost again in the wilderness of the mundane existence. If you surrender to the direction of your mind, which has become mystified by misconceptions regarding your own nature and the nature of the world, and if you thereby refuse to carry out your service, it will be a misuse of your free will. The dictates of your own nature will in due course override your decision, and you will be forced to fulfill your destiny by joining with the fight. Although for the moment you have succeeded in deceiving yourself, and are therefore disinclined towards cooperating with my plans for redeeming the world, the instincts born of your own nature will in time propel you to the very foreground of the struggle. Within each person's heart of hearts, the Supreme Master resides. The soul, which is spontaneous and spiritual, is placed within a body which is mechanical and mundane. Transmigrating from body to body, individual eternal spiritual persons are always accompanied by the Supreme Person, who is the ultimate overseer of everything. Yet, as if by influence of a magic spell, they remain unaware of how all this is working. Learn to follow the sacred ways of divine surrender and take shelter of the Supreme Truth with your whole heart. Mercy will then rain down upon you, and you will feel peace and well-being permeating your consciousness. At last you will enter into the sacred realm of the Supreme Person, the everlasting abode of absolute joy. Now the choice is yours. I have disclosed to you the most confidential aspects of the secret path of divine wisdom. Contemplate the matter deeply and come to your own conclusions. You are free to act in whatever way your conscience ultimately guides you. Out of love for you, I shall once again summarize the innermost secrets of life. Listen carefully, for the supreme transcendence may be accessed through my words. Remain ever conscious of me and offer your heart to me in love. Engage always in my divine service, remaining ever faithful to me. Because I love you very dearly, I make this vow to you. You will live with me always, and through exchange of love we will be one forever. Laying aside all other conceptions of religious laws and duties, take up the ways of loving surrender to me. No blame will touch you if you carry out your service in the spirit of devotional love, because I shall always stand beside you and give you my personal protection. This teaching will remain a secret to those who feel no contrition in their hearts for their misdeeds, and no love in their hearts for me. It will also remain hidden to all those who never take the time or interest to hear it and to understand the inner meanings. Finally, the doors to transcendental knowledge will remain closed to those who take pleasure in the misfortune of others and to those who are envious of my supreme position. The compassionate persons who take up the service of ministering this most sublime and secret message of mine to the loving and faithful souls of the world perform thereby the greatest welfare work of all. By helping other persons to come closer to me, they please me greatly, and before long they come to live with me. Of this there is no doubt. Throughout the whole of humanity, no one can be found who is more dear to me than those who sincerely witness on my behalf. Those who teach the sacred way of transcendental love by their own sincere example will always maintain the central position in my heart. The contemplation of this holy dialogue of ours is itself an exalted act of divine worship. It is my firm conviction that those who make an offering of their intelligence by trying to understand my instructions will come thereby to possess perfect wisdom. Those who listen carefully to these words, with hearts filled with faith and devoid of envy, are certain to gain supreme salvation. They will live in that all-auspicious plane of existence where all of the saints reside. O most fortunate of souls, dear child of Prita, have you listened to all these words of mine with single-pointed attention? Has the fog which darkened your heart lifted, and has the bewilderment which clouded your mind and will been swept away? Arjuna then responded as follows: My dear Lord, you are beyond all of the failings of ordinary souls, and I find, therefore, that all of the misconceptions that I was cherishing have been replaced by proper understanding. Now, by the grace of your causeless mercy, I can remember who I really am and understand my obligations in service to you. I am fully prepared to do whatever you expect of me. Just say the word, and I shall act. Sanjay then concluded his narration. I am thrilled to the very core of my heart and filled with wonder and excitement after hearing this divine conversation between the Supreme Soul, the son of Vasudeva, Sri Krishna, and his exalted pure devotee Arjuna, the valiant son of the noble Queen Kunti. It is only by the divine grace of my spiritual master Vyas, who is himself a great saint and pure devotee of the Lord, that I have been enabled to overhear these sacred words of Lord Krishna spoken in private to his dear friend Arjuna. The Lord is indeed the supreme mystic, and all are on the path of spiritual realization are actually on the way to meet him. Again and again the words of this sacred conversation arise in my memory, and I become overwhelmed with wonder and ecstatic bliss. Your Royal Majesty, time after time, I recollect the beautiful and enchanting form of our Lord, the Redeemer of the world, and my heart is filled with delight upon gaining that glorious vision. It is my deep conviction that if Lord Krishna, who possesses inconceivable potencies, and is the master of all masters, and his friend Arjuna, who is the most skillful of archers, are both present in one place, then all wealth and opulence will be there in abundance. Supreme victory will surely be theirs, all glory will be theirs, and perfect righteousness will always dwell with them. So, Krishna is giving us very important instruction that in the material world, our minds are not our friend. They are misleading us. He says to Arjuna, if you surrender to the direction of your mind, which has become mystified by misconceptions, so the mind in the material world is full of misconceptions, misunderstanding. We don't understand who we are. We don't understand what is our purpose here. We don't understand that I am the eternal servant of God. We don't understand these things. We're mystified. We're in ignorance. So that mind is very, very dangerous. Very dangerous, because the soul is being cheated by that mind, being cheated, being misled, because that mind is not giving you the truth. That mind is not telling you the truth. That mind is being deceitful. Therefore, you are being misled. So, if we surrender to that mind, if we listen to that mind, to that crazy mind, we're in great trouble. Great trouble. Why? Because then we'll stay in this world forever, again and again. There will be no connection with Krishna, no service to Krishna, no. So we cannot surrender to that crazy mind. That's why we need mantra, the holy name. Because the mantra is truth. That is the truth. The truth is, there's Radha and Krishna, the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Lady, and I am their servant. That is the truth. So, mantra confirms that truth. Every time you're chanting Jai Gauranga Hare Krishna, you're praying, my Lord, please give me service. So you're understanding that I am servant of Radha and Krishna. This is the truth. So mantra means to free that mind, that crazy mind, that's thinking this, thinking that, thinking that. It has no benefit for the soul. All the activity of that crazy mind. Oh, I'm making this plan and that plan, yeah? To do with my career, to do with my family, to do with moving here, moving there. All of these plans have no benefit for the soul. No benefit whatsoever. Actually, they're enemies of the soul. So that kind of mind is in a diseased condition. It's not healthy. Yeah. So this mantra is divine. These holy names is not like an ordinary sound. It will act on the heart. It doesn't require brain or intellect. It will go to your heart. It will do the magic there. It will do the magic. Yeah. And what does that mean? That we will become more and more unattached to this material world. We can see that everything here is temporary. Everything. Relationships, house, car, money, everything here is temporary. It will end sometime. Everything here will be finished. You know, the relationships, the money, the career, everything that you build up. Yeah. So that will bring sadness. That will bring unhappiness. Yeah? So Krishna is very kind and says, you have to let go. Let go of this material world, everything here, and become attached to me. In your mind, in your heart, become attached to me. This is our only hope. Otherwise, this is a very sad, unhappy place, isn't it? All you have is frustration, disappointment, relationships, one day they finish, they're broken. Yeah? Everything you like so much, your children, your family, your pets, your everything, one day it's taken away from you. It's very sad. It's a very sad place. You know, nobody can stop that. Nobody can say, I can hold on to this friend or my wife. No, you can't hold on. No, nobody can hold on. So it's a sad place. Krishna says himself, Dukhalayam ashashvatam. This material world is temporary and miserable. It's an unhappy place. You can't change that. You can't get some magic wand and make it different. No, Krishna made it like this. So what to do? Krishna says, what you do, you give your attention, you give your mind, you give your heart, you give your energy to me. Become attached to me. So the attachment here gets released. It'll happen. Why? Because Krishna is all attractive. This is the amazing thing. Just like Rasalina Devi died, Devi Dasi and myself, yesterday we went to Botanical Gardens, Kirstenbosch, yeah? Very beautiful, mountains and trees, so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, wow, this is so beautiful. But who does it come from? It comes from Krishna. So how beautiful must he be? All the beauty, everything comes from him. That's why he's all attractive. All the love, all the beauty, everything attractive is in Krishna. So the more we contact Krishna with the name of Krishna, the form of Krishna, we read about his activities, gradually we start getting attracted. Oh, Krishna is attractive. He's very beautiful. He's very kind. He's very interesting. He does amazing things, you know. And his love for me is the most amazing thing. That he loves me. His love is not like any love in this world. No. So the more we can start feeling that love, the more attracted we become. Yeah. Because we're looking for love. Isn't it? Everybody's looking for love. And Krishna is the real love of everyone's heart. Actually, everybody is looking for Krishna. You're looking for this lover, this friend, this... No, you're actually looking for Krishna. Some don't know it. But only Krishna can satisfy that love that we want. So we love this one, we love that one, we love this one. No satisfaction. And one day it's finished. But you love Krishna. Perfect. No disappointment. And it carries on forever. So this is our only hope. This is a sad world. You can't change that, you know. You have to get out of this world. Not try and stay in this world. People are making so many plans. Next week we're going here, we're going holiday, this place, that. Making so many plans to enjoy here, isn't it? They think this place is perfect. I can enjoy here perfectly. We've got so many ideas. My wife and my kids and this and that. We're going here, we're doing that. Buying this, buying that, yeah? But there's one problem going on all the time here. What's that problem? It's called death. Yeah, it's everywhere. Death is everywhere. You can go here, you can go there, you can go this side, that side. But death is there, isn't it? In fact, in every planet, in the whole universe, it's a big problem. So what is the solution? The solution is to realize that I'm not from this place. This is not my home. I'm a refugee here. How can I go home? That's Goloka. And the Guru comes and says, I will take your hand. You take my hand, you follow me. I give you directions, you know. So this is the purpose of human life. Not to try and make it all perfect here. It can never be perfect here. This we have to understand, you know, and then become serious, focused, you know, that, okay, I understand the problem, and Krishna and Guru are giving me a solution, and let me do it. Let me practice, let me follow the instructions, you know. Chant Hare Krishna, Jai Gauranga, read the Bhagavad Gita, offer the food, all of these things. Gradually, they're taking you out of this place. Day by day, one day at a time, we take one step closer to Krishna. This is our life.